It's that time again. A new Pokemon generation. New region, new species, new everything to look forward to. We only know so much about the upcoming 10th generation so far, but hopes for wins and waves are high after that impressive first trailer. And people have started filling in the gaps and speculating. You know how it goes. And with every new gen, there's always the question, are they going to add more types this time? We haven't seen it happen since Gen 6, but the possibility of it, the potential, always catches fans' attention each generation, until it gets debunked a few months in. But still, we're entering a new era, it's the series' 30th anniversary, and the devs might be shooting for the moon after all the issues Scarlet and Violet had. Plus, if they were handled right, new types could actually help the series, balance-wise, lore-wise, and more. So, if you're willing to hear me out, let's go over 4 potential new types that Gen 10 could introduce, and go deep into detail about how they'd work, what current mons could gain these new types, and what new moves they could include. Ready? Let's go! Let's begin with the one that always pops up when this topic comes around. Let there be... Pokemon has a lot of classic RPG elements represented. Fire, ice, lightning, water, darkness, a stand-in for wind, 2 forms of earth, yet there's no light element, a glaring absence in the otherwise huge range of themes the type chart covers, and a not insignificant number of fans have been hoping that'll change. Now, I know there are common criticisms toward this one. Let's do our due diligence here and address those. Anytime a hypothetical light type comes up, it's always argued that there's no point because the dark type's Japanese name reads closer to evil, and dark type moves are actually just underhanded or dishonorable. Thing is, Pokemon types often cover multiple themes. While Dark does include dirty fighting, it also includes brutal or predatory moves like Bite, as well as regular old elemental darkness. Just look at the Dark Z move and Max move. Because of that, there's plenty of room for a light type to exist as a counterpart. Meanwhile, there's a different argument that the Fairy type is meant as a stand-in for the element of light. Except, not exactly. Fairy is more a combination of magic, life energy, cuteness, fey trickery, and a bit of Eastern-style spirits. Pure elemental light isn't actually covered at all. Dazzling Gleam is outright said to be magic-based in its Japanese name, and the move called Light of Ruin is canonically formed out of life energy. Hell, look at some of the lines from the first 5 generations that are associated with light. If Fairy was meant to be the light element, wouldn't all or at least several of these have gained the type? Yet none of them did. And let's not forget Mimikyu, the ghost/fairy type species who wears disguises because they're extremely vulnerable to direct light. Basically, there's a whole elemental niche here that the series hasn't actually done much with yet, and there's room to expand on it with a new type. So, how could a theoretical light type work? What themes could it include? Well, just like we demonstrated, regular old elemental light doesn't have a true home right now. It's been hanging around the normal type, which is sometimes used as a catch-all for themes that don't have types of their own. Giving it somewhere to go would let Pokemon expand on it and play around with aspects the series hasn't been able to. And we can add a little more to it. Like I said, Pokemon types often include multiple themes. We can mix in different forms of reflected or multicolored light, those that aren't created through other means anyway, like Aurora Beam using cold air. Or, light can include techniques that are outright benevolent or self-sacrificial, a counterpart to Dark's underhandedness in a different way than fighting's honorable techniques. What current Pokemon could become part light? Actually, several. Turns out there are over 20 just out of what's already available, more than the number that moved over to Fairy in Gen 6, and presumably a new generation would introduce a bunch more, like how Gen 6 had 13 new Fairy types. There are some obvious choices here. Multiple lines associated with sunlight or bioluminescence, the solar generator themed line from Gen 6 that is notably part normal, using it as a catch-all as mentioned before, and some more inspired picks, like the actively benevolent Dark type with the yin-yang color theme that represents duality, and all 3 Lycanroc forms, which are associated with different times of day. Even Midnight gets it. Who says a light type can't like a good fight? How would light interact with the other types? Remember how I said a new type could help the meta if handled just right? Fairy types have been really strong lately, and this would introduce a new counter to them. Dark and Ghost have also been doing well, and Light gives them a new check. Works thematically too. Pure Light drives away darkness, purifies ghosts and wayward souls, and dispels fairy trickery. Light types are completely immune to dark attacks, making Sucker Punch useless against them. Would that make Dark underpowered? It'd need further testing. And hitting Steel neutrally adds a new gap in that type's defenses. But you have to have weak points too, including the dead obvious one in Grass, since plants absorb sunlight for energy. And a couple more as well. It doesn't take much for benevolent actions to be manipulated or corrupted for other ends. Also, Poison in particular appreciates the help. And since Ice reflects light really well, Ice types finally get to resist something other than themselves. Wait, what's that question mark for? We'll get to that one later. And finally, some examples of new Light-type moves. Introducing a basic early-level special attack, this type's counterpart to Ember or Thundershock. A stronger physical move with a high crit rate. You know Absol would get that one naturally. A higher-level special move with a prism motif that have extra utility if triple battles come back, or if there are proximity mechanics like in ZA. And a utility move that leaves the user temporarily vulnerable but cures them of any status effects afterward. Basically a higher level refresh that heals more statuses with a little more risk up front. But sometimes it helps to be able to stare at all the nonsense happening around you and just say no. That's one of the biggest requests. Now let's talk about the other one next. Out of all the concepts for new types, the most commonly suggested ones are light and sound. We have a few abstract types in Pokémon already, so adding a new one devoted to sound waves and everything surrounding them would fit right in. They've even laid the groundwork for it already. Sound-based moves have been a unique category ever since Gen 3, and the normal type's been a catch-all for sound attacks even more so than light. Even the new Rotom stereo form in Pokopia is part normal, so it can make the jump and become electric/sound no problem. Admittedly, you'd have to rework a few things to get everything to fit right. Soundproof could grant immunity to sound-type moves like Levitate does for ground. You'd have to draw the line on when a sound-based move is purely sound-type versus when it's taken on enough of another element to become a different type, like Bug Buzz or Snarl or Sparkling Aria. And you'd have to rework a few moves to be less overpowered. But they overhauled Leech Life in Gen 7, so toning down Boom Burst or the like wouldn't be that much of a stretch. And one could argue that the benefits of a new addition to the type chart would make the extra effort worth it. Thematically, the sound type would cover, well, anything that attacks the sense of hearing more than anything else. Sound waves, mesmerizing music, cacophonous noise, you name it. Could also expand more to include some related themes. Anything involving rapid vibrations or natural frequencies that aren't seismic in nature, that's the ground type's domain. And maybe even some rhythmic or dance-based techniques. Also worth considering, since a lot of pure sound stuff comprises most of the special category normal type moves, that type would also need a handful of new attacks to fill in the gaps. Not a difficult problem to solve, could create more non-elemental projectiles like with Swift, but it's something they'd need to account for. Though considering Gen 10 is the first generation in ages to not have its development be rushed, adding a ton of new moves might be much more doable in ways it wasn't before. Like with Light, there are actually a lot of current mons that slot into the sound type. When sound-based moves have had a unique niche for so long, it makes it easier. Shout out to the Litleo line, who did the same part normal thing in Gen 6 that the Helioptile line did, thanks to learning so many sound-based moves. Shout out also to the Whismur line for becoming pure sound, only mono new type line so far. We have some interesting stuff going on with the others, too. Politoed gets a more defined identity beyond outclassed range setter. Rillaboom becomes the first Galar starter to not be monotype. Meanwhile, Noibat and Noivern run into a rough spot where sound makes too much sense not to include, so one of their current types had to go. They're used by enough dragon specialists that I chose to keep that one. Maybe justify dropping flying by retroactively saying they can't fly for too long at a time. And hey, Maractus is here. Might not be the most forgettable Gen 5 mon anymore now. How would sound interact with the other types? Well, it'd shake up the meta in its own way. Sound waves travel extra far through water, so this could finally give the water type a third weakness and bring its famous bulk down a peg. Sound also disrupts the concentration of fighting and psychic types. The latter just got help by beating light, so you could call this a counterbalance. And it travels through sheer rock well enough, which doesn't help a type that isn't strong defensively. Oops. But sound types run into problems against a few others. Sound waves get distorted or muffled by strong winds, so the flying type finally gets a new advantage. And grass gets another one, thanks to the old idea that talking to your plants helps them grow better. Notably, steel moves are super effective on sound types, but they do not resist sound attacks. Helps its offense, but not its defense. And wait a minute, there's that question mark again. What is that? And how does it hard counter this type? And for our finale, a few examples of new sound type attacks. First, a basic special sound move for low levels. No effect on this one, so it's more like Water Gun or Vine Whip. Next, a stronger physical attack with a flinch chance. Extra annoying on anyone with the ability Serene Grace. Then a status move and counterpart to charge, but for sound moves. Might need some retooling considering how underpowered charge is. And, hold up, is that a new terrain effect? Echo terrain reverberates both noise and repetitive actions, powers up sound type damage by 50%, and makes any move used twice or more in a row have 1.2 times accuracy. Could make stone misses a thing of the past for a few turns. Far as requested types go, we can look beyond just the big two. In fact, to find another, all we need to do is look up. Way up. Might take some more finagling to pull off than light or sound, but could this work as a new type? Most definitely. The cosmic type would include everything revolving around outer space. Get it? Revolving like planets around a star? Could start with simpler ideas like moves themed after stars or gravity, including retyping the ones we currently have, and we could expand from there to include other intergalactic phenomena. Some weird stuff happens out in the depths of space, and you know how the Pokémon devs like doing detailed research on the natural world so they can put unique spins on it for their games. Hell, you saw what they did with the concept of convergent evolution. Their creativity could really shine here. What current mons could become cosmic types? Well, admittedly, it's slimmer pickings than it was with light and sound. Got a decent variety here, especially the ones that are outright said to be from space. But this is a case where the devs would need to add several new cosmic lines in Gen 10, like with Gen 6's new fairies. There's also the problem of, well, outer space has had a loose connection with the psychic type so far, and untethering it to become its own type would leave after effects. A lot of the new cosmic types are former psychics, and a few just become dual types because psychic still fits them. This one's harder to pull off as a type than the previous two because of that, but the building blocks are there nonetheless if the devs want to boldly go there. Just like their otherworldly inspiration, cosmic types interact with the others in some very alien ways. As you might have realized, this is the mystery type that showed up in the previous two charts. Cosmic is weak to and resisted by light, which travels through outer space effortlessly, and is strong against and immune to sound, which can't travel through space at all. Cosmic's other interactions are all over the place. It's the second type ever to be super effective against normal, since cosmic types and their alien nature overwhelm the senses of ordinary beings. They're also strong against fire, which has no oxygen to burn in space, resistant to attacks from the Earth and its atmosphere, bringing the very powerful ground type down a peg, and both resists and is resisted by dark, which is ever present in deep space. Yet cosmic attacks are resisted by ice and rock, both plentiful out in space, and another new resist for ice, weak to earthly poisons and viruses, another boon for the poison type that doubles as a War of the Worlds reference, and countered outright by electric and bug. The latter are strange and otherworldly by alien standards, and also bug types desperately needed a buff. And to show how unnatural this type can be, let's demo a few cosmic attacks. Here's a basic physical strike that takes on the power of a comet, and might leave some lingering energy behind. Rare for basic stab moves to sometimes buff the user, huh? Next is a stronger special attack that hits multiple times and checks accuracy for each hit separately? That's weird. And a high-level physical move wreathed in sand and dust that always connects if a sandstorm is active. Cosmic moves like putting their own spin on things. You know, like a spinning planet? Yeah, forget it. And, oh boy, our first new insta-kill move since Gen 2? Sure, it checks out, but I hope whoever uses it knows what they're doing. Before we go, I have one more idea. Light and sound are common requests. Cosmic's pretty high up there too. But what about something more experimental? I mean, why not? We did see the fairy type coming. For our last concept, we're taking this show online. Okay, this one shows up every now and then too, but still, cyberspace is ubiquitous to modern existence, yet it's often overlooked when it comes to elemental systems in RPGs. Pokemon's in a rare position where it can take the concept and run with it. Themes for the cyber type could include any kind of electronic or cybernetic entity, anything involving pure data or digital elements, or anything that imitates a computer. For example, if they wanted a Rotom phone that could fight, easy electric/cyber form. Could even expand the theme to include artificial beings created using technology, which could open up further flexibility depending on how the devs chose to handle it. What current Pokemon could gain this type? Well, you know how Cosmic only had a small handful to work with? It's the same here. Within this batch are a couple notables. Mewtwo, the artificial being created through genetic experiments, fits just well enough to pick up the type. Beyond that, we have the obvious suspects, and several, but not all, future paradoxes. These are the easiest ones to slide the cyber type onto. The others work better with their current types. Compared to this video's previous three, this type would benefit the most by far from a new generation adding a bunch of new lines, new regional variants, new conversion species, and whatever else they have planned for Gen 10. Robotic or clone versions of lines we already have, or synthetic creatures loosely imitating natural ones? Easy premise for the art team to have some fun, don't you think? Combat-wise, the cyber type's claim to fame is dominance over all things electric and metallic, giving the electric type a second weakness after all this time, and giving steel another hole in its stalwart defense. Cyber also has a leg up on the fairy type. If cold iron can neutralize the fairfolk, then highly advanced technology can too. But as we all know, even cutting-edge tech can screw up. Intense heat fries the circuits of cyber types. Bugs can screw up their functions, including literal bugs, which further helps that type. And they have to watch out for a proverbial, or not so proverbial, ghost in the machine. Their attacks are also resisted by rock types, because have you seen how hard it can be to get a connection through solid walls? Notably, cyber takes neutral damage from their own attacks. Apparently all of their tech can be just as harmful to themselves as it is to most others. But what could those attacks even look like? Cyber-type moves could take the following forms. A basic attack using a cluster of pixels manifesting in the real world somehow, potentially making the target more vulnerable to the next shot. A stronger physical move with unique utility that screws up opponents who rely on stat buffs. A setup move and counterpart to Dragon Dance with unique technological thematics. And, oh boy, self-destruct and explosion might not get much use nowadays, but this is a counterpart that can deal super effective damage. Suddenly, electric, steel, and fairy types have to be careful around high-level electrodes with an itchy trigger finger. So, what do you think? 4 potential new types that could, feasibly, happen in the incoming generation of Pokémon. Or if not now, sometime in the future, including 2 long-running fan requests, one wielding the full power of light in ways we haven't seen in the series yet, the other turning sound from a mere category into a full type of its own. We also covered a couple other ideas, one based around outer space and celestial objects, the other bringing the digital world into the physical one. Not that digital world. How do you feel about this quartet? Do you have any ideas for how to expand on them? Ideas for more moves? And do you have other ideas for new types that you'd like to see me take a stab at in a future video? There are a lot of fan ideas out there, so maybe I could do more of them justice. And who knows, I could do some more Pokemon videos during the wait for Winds and Waves. I've been building up design ideas for the new starters' evolutions, but I'll need to get some help getting them visualized. For now, thanks to the following for helping put this video together. Shout out to my channel supporters, patrons, and YouTube members for their continued support. And if you're new here, this is mainly a Smash channel, but I've done some Pokemon themed videos every now and then, and I'm interested in doing more. Definitely check out that Pokken 2 roster if you're into that. So, until next time, remember the professor's words. There's a time and place for it. Wait, no, damn it, I used that last video. Good luck out there, trainers.